The following is a presentation of the Matt Talk Podcast Network.
Fun show coming up here on the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, multiple-time award-winning Hall of Fame announcer, wrestling broadcaster, you name it, I do it in the sport of wrestling. Jason Bryant, thank you for listening here. Today, we're going to be talking about some youth wrestling, going back to my roots in Virginia with the Virginia Challenge, the event and the group that's hosting the annual Virginia Challenge. Holiday Duels coming up this coming weekend, December 7th through 9th in Virginia Beach. We'll have Frank Lipoli, yes, the man with the gift of gab from the VA on the line. Also, as we get through our thank you season, I've got about 50 shirts, 21 hats, 14 draft glasses, and a slew of stickers going out to the patrons of this program. If you like what you hear and you like to subscribe to the show and you like all the things we do on the Matt Talk Podcast Network, you can join the following people as team members and contributors. Brad Bowles, new patron. He did that by signing up at matttalkonline.com/join the team or by going to the Patreon page at patreon.com/matttalkonline. New contributors, Barry Jenkin, Kirk Ford, and Gary Frankie. Thank you for your contributions. Also like to thank, what are they thanking? Why am I thanking them? Because they're contributing to this network. I am thanking them for their support because they are thanking me with their generous contributions because of the daily newsletter, which you'll hear Frank Lipoli talk about later, the school board page, which is unlike anything else you will see in college wrestling on the internet, and, of course, all the litany of shows that we do here on the network. With that, I'm going to just dial it out here. Hey, here's Frank Lipoli and the formal intro of this episode 481 of the Short Time Wrestling Podcast. It's a Short Time Wrestling Podcast. Today, getting to go a little old school with my friends back in Virginia as we've got the Virginia Challenge Holiday Duels coming up December 7th, 8th, and 9th at the Virginia Beach Convention Center. Joining us on the program today, a guy that has called me more than anyone in the history of the world, executive director of the Virginia Challenge and wrestling promoter extraordinaire. He's here to talk about action-packed action, Frank Lipoli. Frank, been a very long time. Well, finally, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, this is great. Big fan of Jason Bryant. Remember him, for all you listeners out there, when he was just as enthusiastic and loving wrestling. I don't think wrestling loved him as much as he loved it. But so he took some lumps, but where he's been and where he's done for our country and around the world, we're very proud that Jason Bryant is a charter person with the Virginia Challenge and knew the dream when it was first hatched about the Virginia Challenge National Holiday Duels. The rest is history.
I mean, I was even listening to Flow Wrestling Radio Live as we record this on December 4th. I was listening to it this morning. They were talking about what events they had, and at the very end of the show, they're like, the VAC Holiday Duels, and they're like, oh, those things are awesome. And I'm sitting there going, one, whoever came up with this terminology VAC, because we always said VAC, as in Virginia Challenge.
Yes.
Are you blaming you're blaming the New Jersey folks for that one, Frank?
New Jersey folks. Yep, it was the New Jersey. I didn't even know what they're talking about at first. VAC, and it's VAC. I mean, they go, I go, what's that? It's your tournament, dummy. I go, VAC. Yeah, it's VAC. So you see now on a lot of credentials around with these elite wrestlers, VAC gold, and it carries a lot of weight. Kyle Snyder was a VAC silver. The Olympic champion as an eighth grader took second in our tournament, and then didn't lose again till he was a freshman in college. Metcalf, a two-time national champion, multiple Olympian, didn't place. He was 7-3. That's right, 7-3.
World teamer, but whatever.
Right, world teamer. 7-3 doesn't cut it. That's kind of one of the things we did. Is difficult to place, and it attracted it did and it does attract the elite level guy as a measuring stick. And the Metcalf didn't out of the hut, 7-3, doesn't place. 10-0, 9-1, 8-2.
What we have is
other
a dual
than that,
format.
You had a good tournament.
Yeah, we have a dual format. And let's just go back in time, because events like this don't just pop up out of thin air. And it has taken It's taken years. And as we look back on it, I'm sitting there thinking about, man, when we started this, and I want to say we started this because, as you mentioned, I was right there with you guys as a charter member of the Virginia Challenge. And that started.
You were the announcer. You were the announcer.
And the media director and the website guy and everything else that went with it.
Right.
So we've got.
Right. How do we do this, Jason? How do we do this, Jason?
Yeah.
Wake up, Jason. You don't need to sleep.
No, we'll get to the pairing the first tournament here in a minute. So in 1998-99, we had a hole in Virginia wrestling. We didn't have much of a middle school program. Chesapeake had middle school wrestling, Virginia Beach had middle school wrestling, parts of Northern Virginia had it, pockets around the state had it. And what we did is we tried to create a giant middle school wrestling tournament. Our first year, we had over 800 wrestlers. 5, 6, 7, 8, because some schools still had the junior high in the 5th grade. So we included the 5th through 8th graders. And it was that monster 8th grade class. The key was, okay, we got this good group of 8th graders too. We're going to take them to at the time we were AAU affiliated, the national duels out in Chicago. And we had a monster team. But that first year, I remember.
Bubba Jenkins.
Yeah, Bubba was a 6th grader that year.
Right.
And I think he took 4th. But anyway, so when we get this idea started, before we get to middle school states, give me the Frank Lipoli version of how you remember everything getting started with the formation of the Virginia Challenge.
Well, formation is there was a really good group of younger wrestlers with Bubba Jenkins in that at the time. So how can we make the state better? Can't really help the junior in college, junior in high school. Can't really help him. He'll be gone before we can help him. So we thought we would focus on the elite middle school kids in the state. And there was a great group of them that are synonymous in our state, if you're from our state. And it worked. And we had a middle school tournament that was 5th grade. That at that time, it's 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And the logic was, well, in high school, you were in 4 grades. We'll start this thing where these are the 4 grades. The same that it would be in high school, they're just smaller. And it worked. And it projected of one particular wrestler named Colin Dozier. He won it as a 5th grader, the state tournament as a 5th grader. And he projected, and he won it 4 times. Then he won 4 high school state championships. Then he went to Michigan State. So the plan worked at that time. It was a vision, and everybody was like, come on, Frank. I go, what's it going to hurt? Let's try it. So with guys like Jason Bryant, Bill Pittman, Aldo Baldino, my cousin, we went with it and ran. And when we went to Chicago, we saw what they were doing, and we thought, you know what? With all the people we have in the Hampton Roads area, the Virginia Duels people, we could do something like they were doing in Chicago, and maybe we can even do it better. And 2 years later was the birth of the Holiday Duels, Virginia Challenge National Holiday Duels.
And you say the Virginia Duels in there, which is coming up on its 39th year in January. And, of course, that's the event. Well, one, we first met when I was just a high school kid doing some stuff for the old high school paper in Pocosin. Your son was wrestling at Great Bridge. And, my senior year, it was at that wild Great Bridge Pocosin in the semis at the Virginia Duels. And a week later, I mean, you're sitting there. And here's the thing, folks. Frank he was a consummate promoter of the Virginia Duels. So what you would see is Frank would be on all 3 stations, talking about the Virginia Duels. He'd have the Virginian Pilot and the Daily Press, sound bites everywhere. And we'd have all these volunteers working the tournament. But I remember sitting there because I wasn't actually even remotely close to be in the starting lineup that particular year. And there's the old the triangle pyramid score clock. And there's Billy Inge, there's Jacob Inge's dad sitting right next to you as Jacob wrestles Derek at one. I mean, they wrestled 3 times, and each time it was a war. So, and you guys are like arm around each other watching the match together. It was Great Bridge. It was just one of those things like, hey, Lipoli's over there hanging out with Jacob's dad. What the heck's going on here? Like during the match. But Frank had always been, Frank, and you need to get this promotion thing in and dial it in a little bit, because back in 1977, you won a state championship as a team with Bethel High School in Hampton, Virginia, in an era when the Peninsula Wrestling was really, really growing. You had some really good coaches on the Peninsula, but you had this flair for promotion that went into the Virginia Duels and now onto the Virginia Challenge. So where did that flair from promotion come from, and what are some of the things that were unique at the time that have always been kind of your calling card?
Well, my mom was like to sing and dance and all that, and I guess I got that little bug for her. But I always thought that at the time that if we make it big and the kids believe it big, they'll wrestle up to that potential. And I was relentless with it. It was always going to be the biggest match. This is going to be the biggest match. And we'd have special things. We had the seafood cup, which we created, which was Bethel against Pocosin. We sat 2,600 kids, people in it. At that time in 1977, we had it at a point that if you didn't come to our matches, and this was on the peninsula district, as Jason said, that was a doormat of our region, really, for the most part. And if you didn't get to our matches early, you didn't get in. And so that was kind of the start of it. And then when I got out of the coaching and moved on, I still had the bug of it, and with some parents that were excited and their kids were really good, we started the Virginia Challenge, and was how can we again lift this state up, and we figured we could do it with a really, really strong group of middle school wrestlers, and we had them, and we traveled, and they did well, and out of that group, Bubba Jenkins, national champion, University Games champion, and Fishcorns, which wrestled at Oklahoma State and did really well, All-American there, and it just continued to grow.
I'm going to throw in some
more
names.
There it is 18 years later.
I'm going to throw in some more names to you, too, because it's more than just Division One. We've got, the Lenhart brothers that were All-Americans from Gloucester that went Division III at Johnson and Wales. Arsenio Barksdale from he was a Norfolk kid, ended up wrestling at Kempsville and Virginia Beach. He was a national champion, Division II, 4-time Division II All-American. Kids, Duder
Stop
Evans.
on him. Stop. I'm going to stop you on him. This is a point of what I'm talking about. When we had the middle school states, we were trying to pick a team. This is the early years of it. And I remember what I said to get kids better. Well, Barksdale was wrestling for third and fourth, and I was sitting just watching in general, and this guy caught my eye, and it was Barksdale. Guy had 1 foot up in the air and couldn't take him down. His balance was extraordinary. So he took third, and I ran over and just saw this talent and said, who are you? And he told me, I said, how long have you been wrestling? He went, 2 weeks. I don't know, how long have you been wrestling? No, how long? He goes, 2 weeks. And so we paired him with Brian Richardson, who was coaching, who was a great coach in the area. His son was a state champion, and Barksdale was on our team, and we took him to Iowa with us, and he beat guys that have been wrestling for 10, 15 years. And then goes on to what Jason just said all about it.
Now, there's some interesting things about what we had. I mean, it was kind of a hodgepodge that first year. We're like, okay, it's our first trip out here. And I know we're not talking about the holiday duels at this point, but we're talking about the Virginia Challenge. And we're looking, it's like, okay, I think we one kid hopped at a cab and went to Hooters. For his parents, that was no surprise. Some of our other parents were like, what? Then we had, what else do we have? We had just, hey, who are you? All right, yeah, go to the cab. You're in the airport. I mean, it was just some random stuff going on. And then we was like looking at the age limit. We had this one kid, Dwayne Shepard. He ended up wrestling at Grammy. He had like 1 year of high school eligibility by the time he was all said and done. It was like, what's the age cutoff? You can't be 16 by then. Dwayne, when do you turn 16? Okay, he was eligible for like the middle school duels for like a week. And, he ended up loving wrestling. And we had just all sorts of the kids from like inner city Norfolk, Team Norfolk, as you like to collect them when you were coaching in the middle schools in Norfolk. But we just had so many different personalities come through over the years. And when we sit there and talk about, wow, Virginia Challenge, it's happened, 20 years in the making. That first year, I mean, it was like we had to sit there and pair that thing by hand because the software didn't work. I'm sitting there with Mike Newbern at 4:30 in the morning. We're taking a break at the hotel. He goes, screw it, Twink, we're doing it by hand. So me and him, because I had the nicest handwriting of the bunch, I had to handwrite, how many of these brackets? I mean, it was just crazy. So how far we've come, and now we've got Flow Wrestling streaming this thing. I mean, people are wanting to see it. I mean, it's really come a long way, Frank.
It's been a wonderful transition again, and this is the 18th year of the event, and we have teams from California and Utah and Colorado, and this year new team from New Mexico.
And when we first started the holiday duels, let's talk about that.
Yep.
Frank also had this event called the Summer Sizzler, and he had Frank's also been notorious for how bad his spelling has been over the years, and thankfully spell check and then having other people do the flyers has been a great thing for the Virginia Challenge, because Frank hired this band called the Calypso Nuts one year to do the island themed Summer Sizzler. And so Mike Newbern's sitting there going, "Hey Frank, this is great, but who are the Clopsy Nuts?" As Clopsy Nuts. So, we had the island theme, referees wearing the brightly colored shirts. And then when we get to the holiday duels, Frank comes up with one of the most simplest, effective holiday ideas ever. Hey, I don't know if was it Frank or was it Lucy that came up with it? With the naming of the pools, the Rudolph, the pool, the Blitzen pool.
Me.
We named the pools after the reindeer. I mean, it's a fun event, but that's really like, people started paying it. Hey, man, we need to be in that Rudolph pool.
Rudolph pool, Rainbow pool. Now there's so many pools, there aren't enough reindeer to be them. So we're just A, B, C, and D now. But in E, F, G, H, I, we have 16 pools in the elementary school division with 64 teams, and we have 60 teams in the middle school division. Unbelievable. We started with just 20 middle schools, and that's just 20. And we always had teams from Pennsylvania have been in it for all 18 years. In Michigan, I think they popped aboard maybe the second year of it, and then it's been great. It's been just an incredible amount of elite level kids, and it's almost they have to come. The good kid has to come to this as a measuring stick of where they're from, how they're going to do, what's going to happen down the road.
Where do you see the balance, though, between maybe too much competition as a youth? I mean, you're going to get a lot of matches here, so there's the situation.
You get 10.
Yeah, but as far as the long kids traveling around the country, I mean, do you think it's like, okay, 10? Do you think this is the type of event that should be kind of like, okay, this is your big event for the year, and then take a couple months, and then before you're chasing all these other trophies at other events? I mean, there's a lot of national events out there where kids can get a lot of matches.
Oh, there are a lot now than there was 18 years ago. We are still one of the few people in the country that you can get 10 matches at. There might only be one or two other ones that do that, but it's the strength of competition. It's how can this guy that's a 3-time that's won the dominated in Iowa fair against a kid that's from Pennsylvania, and it's uniquely you see these accolades, national champion, this champion, Reno, all this, but the Pennsylvania people just stick to, he's a PA state champ, he's a PA state place winner, and that's good enough.
PJW, Pennsylvania Junior Wrestling, for example, too.
Yep, that's all they ever put on it, and it carries a lot of weight. The depth of competition, and that goes back to why we started the Virginia Challenge and the state championship. What Virginia lacked was the depth of competition. Who is going to can the number 4 guy challenge the number 1 guy on a consistent basis? And how good the number 4 guy is reflects on how good the number 1 guy can be. In the state of Pennsylvania, and just to use them as an example, I mean, you got to be ready every week because of the strength of competition around the state. And some states have that, some states don't. Virginia has always, been chasing that. We've had some great wrestlers, guys that have gone on to D1, particularly when we first started. When those guys get into high school, they all did very well. And you're the testimony of that, Jason, because you covered them as a journalist.
Yeah, there was like Bubba Jenkins placing 4th at the middle school states in 6th grade. I mean, seeing, and the thing is, and here's one thing that we also talked about back then is there were some hammers that competed in that, in those middle school state tournaments that, went on and there were hammers in the next year and the next year and the next year. Sometimes kids, when they stop wrestling, and whether they have other interests, they get burnt out or they end up being a stud football player, or they move, or they become a stud soccer player. I mean, we had several wrestlers that come through there that were middle school state champions that never stepped foot on a high school mat because they excelled in so many other sports. Let's use a kid from my high school or my hometown, Josh Zeidenberg, when he was in the eighth grade, he wins the middle school state title. He ran for 2,700 yards his senior year in high school. So, I mean, he was a stud tailback on the football team from day one. So, some kids do end up playing other sports. But you said this early, and it always kind of stuck me. Sometimes the best we ever see kids is when they're like 12, 13 years old, or like that 7th and 8th grade window. And there were the kids that I don't know if they've peaked. It's just that's like the peakness of a lot of their fun. They're really starting to hit their stride. And like I'm looking at some of those first year guys, and I was like, oh wow, I remember that kid. He wrestled our middle school states. Oh, and he was playing tennis or something. So we're at an age group where we see kind of everybody starting to blossom in the sport and kind of really fall in love with the sport. And also maybe those really good kids who are on the way out still have what it takes before they found other interests.
Right. It's like, do you love wrestling or do you love winning? If you love winning, you may not last as long as the guy that loves wrestling. No matter if your early success may be no indication of your later success. And that's, that really is a driving energy force behind the whole deal.
We look at the depth of this event, and then we see where it's come. I mean, the first year was at Old Dominion in a building that doesn't even exist anymore, the old field house. I think we ran it on 8, maybe 10 mats, and it was small. We had maybe 16 teams. So when did you really see the explosion and went, holy crap, we're going to need some more help to run this thing?
Well, we just kept, our group is only have about 10 in the Virginia Challenge that are on our board, but we've always reached out to the people that have brought teams in. I mean, I'm holding the program, Jason, in my hand right now from last year, and we had some people from Iowa come in. Their name was Hathaways, and their son was really good, and the dad was all excited, and he brought him in, and he ended up being a D1 wrestler down the road from Iowa. And then we had the Michigan group with Rich Roberts. God bless him. This is Rich's last year. He's been coming for 16 years, and he's retiring this year. And he's had Metcalf was wrestled with him. Jankowski, right, the heavyweight from NC State. He wrestled for Michigan because there was no North Carolina team, New York team at the time, so he wrestled for them. Aaron Brooks, world champion, he's wrestled for, like I told you, Metcalf. He wrestled for it, didn't play. So we mentioned Bubba Jenkins. How about this one, Carlton Schwartz? He's not doing bad right now.
Colton
He's
Schultz.
See,
Frank's pronunciation is just about as bad as his spelling. So I can sit there and do that translation for you. So Colton Schultz and Nick Gwizdowski.
Yep, and right. And then I'm looking at got this page open right now. Here's another one that might ring a bell for you guys. Gabe Dean. He wrestled for the Michigan Select team. Of course, he's out of New York, so he wrestled. Of course, 2-time national champion and went to Cornell. Here's another one. 98 pounds. Wrestled 98 pounds. Miles Martin, New Jersey Strength. He wrestled in our tournament. 98. And guys that are coming up like Kurt McHenry out of Virginia. He just signed with Michigan. Nico from Pennsylvania. He wrestled in it at an early age. And Spencer Lee. Spencer Lee wrestled in it twice. Matter of fact, our feature story in our program is about Spencer Lee, and he talks about his experience here at the Virginia Challenge. And one of the things he said was, I knew I had to be ready when I went down there because everybody's good. And, and that's one of the things that has set us, Zane Rutherford. And those guys projected. Here's a good one for you. We had 10 guys in the NCAA finals this past year. Joseph, who won his second national championship, I think it was in 2012, was on the Pennsylvania White team, which was their third team. The kid, and you're going to help me with the name, from NC State to finish second in the nation. His name is Jason
Hayden Hidley.
He wrestled in it at 85 pounds in the same weight class as Joseph. And the wrestler from Iowa that just got hurt, that's out for the season,
Mike Kemmerer,
wrestled for Team PA. he won the 85-pound division.
Yeah, it's pretty good, I'd
And
say.
Joseph was third. And now look at it. They all placed in the Nationals this past year. Amazing.
Pretty wild.
Absolutely amazing.
Now, I want to go back in time just a little bit too. Again, kind of telling the story about the foundation. We talked about what Virginia was lacking, and the way I remember it is the very first foundation were at Cox High School in Virginia Beach watching a duel or something. And I'm sitting up there. It was Skip Parker was up there. I was there. Margaret, most of us from the South Side were on there. And Frank just walks up the bleachers. We're at the top of the bleachers. He goes, "All right, here's what we're doing. This is it. This is the group." And he just kind of tells us we're all involved. Like, okay, now we refined it at the time. Colin Baker was brought in, the late Colin Baker, in which we have the Colin Baker Service Award, which we'll be presenting this year.
Mike
That's
McCormick.
Mike McCormick, Dr. Mike McCormick, the NCAA wrestling official and coach at said alma mater of Pocosin. His son, Patrick, his oldest son, is at the University of Virginia right now, redshirting. Middle son, Cole, wrestling. And as we said, he's got a younger son that's into football and soccer. So, again, some people that wrestle end up finding other interests. But Colin Baker.
He's also my dentist.
Yeah, if they're smart, he's your dentist too. But a couple things. Let's talk about Colin a little bit because I remember, in my younger, more brash years, the gift of gab I had wasn't always used for positivity. And I remember announcing a tournament. I took a little shot at Frank as a playful dig, but it didn't come off so well over the PA. And Mr. Baker was not too pleased. And had that military background, and was a big fan of respect and paying your dues, earning your stripes, kind of thing. And he kind of set me down verbally, and it was one of those things that I learned something from him. And Colin ended up being a really good friend over the years. And we lost him a couple years ago. Actually, at this point, longer than a couple years ago. But the Colin Baker Service Award, as Virginia Challenge presents it, what does that mean for the organization? What's it mean to you to present something in his honor to somebody in the state of Virginia each year?
Well, the Colin Baker Award, we feel as though projects Colin's undying love for the sport, and his wife Anna. They traveled around the world. They'd be there at the Olympics, and you look up, and there he is. NCAA championships, there he is. World championships, there he is. And he loved the sport, and he was always there with a sound mind, and to give you the right perspective on stuff. I'm sure we have these in every state. There's probably a Colin Baker, and he was one of our founding board members, one of the early presidents, and unfortunately passed away. And we continue to honor him with the Colin Baker Award.
And what's also cool is you get to present it twice. You get to present it at the holiday duels, and you also get to present it at the Virginia duels. So
here's a correction. And this year we will present it a third time at the Virginia chapter of the National Hall of Fame.
Oh, cool.
And we're going to do that right there where all the wrestling people will really appreciate a guy like Colin Baker. So we're going to do it 3 times, and I think it's cool. Very cool.
All right, let's get into a little bit of the backstory of who Frank is for a moment. We've talked a lot about the Virginia Challenge events and the foundations and how tough the Virginia Challenge holiday duels are. But you wrestled back in the day in old Norfolk. You're an Ocean View guy, and you spent a lot of time growing up with some guy named Wayne Boyd, who's made some waves here with the AWL and Titan Mercury. And
Wayne recruited me to college, and he came to a match I wrestled for Joey Caprio, who wrestled at Lehigh, and the phone's beeping in my ear with people from around the country, so that's why I stuttered then. But he came to our match, and Joey said, this guy's coming to recruit you for college. And so I went out and pinned the guy as quick as I could because I thought that's what you were supposed to do. And Wayne came out of the stands and said, "Look, I came a long way. I'll be back on Friday, and don't pin. I'm not coming here to see you pin. I'm coming here to see you wrestle." Like, really? So I wrestled a kid from Kellam High School named Land. It was really good at the time, and I had a really good match, scored a lot of points, and Wayne recruited me at Temple University. Wayne has always been full of spit, fire, and vinegar. and he bleeds the sport. And the thing that he's done with Titan Mercury, and again now with the American Wrestling League, is just you just shake your head out and go, he's still doing it, and he is still doing it, and he's not going to stop anytime soon. He's really, really got to give the dog a view. He's quite a visionary, and he gets it done.
And it's not like Wayne was just from Temple coming down there. He was an old Ocean View guy. So this is something that,
right.
When people look at Wayne and see how kind of eccentric he is, this is the way Wayne Boyd has always been.
Right. He's not changed a lick. What you see is what's always been.
Now, when we come to Frank, and we joked at the beginning, I got to tell the story because back, I want to say 2001, probably 2002, 2003-ish. And Frank was trying to come up with this buzzword for the Virginia Duels and the Virginia Challenge. He kept coming up with this action-packed action. I'm like, Frank, no, that's terrible. That's terrible. That's terrible.
Hey,
come to find out,
Bruce Rader just said it recently.
What's on the hoodies? Action-packed action. Channel 3 comes out. Ted Alexander, who's now the voice of Old Dominion football and basketball, comes out and puts the camera in my face, and then he puts it in Frank's face. And, hey, Jason, you're going to be on TV tonight. So I'm sitting there watching, and it pitches to Frank, and he goes, action-packed action. I was like, you son of a... Yeah, so Frank's always had this way of getting back at me various different ways with the action-packed action, but it has always been one that's a colorful character and a promoter of wrestling.
Think about it. Think about it for a second. If it's a wrestling match, it's just 23 to 21. It's just not. That's just not action. 10 to 9 is action. But when you got points being thrown around like a ping pong ball, it's action-packed action. I mean, it's easy to understand. We've all been there. We've all seen it. We just didn't know what to call it.
My next question is has the statute of limitations run out on the wrong man story? Can we tell that story now?
No.
Okay. I'll just leave it at that. Let's just say that there was the wrong man, spelled MANN.
Right.
We'll actually
right.
that's one.
That man's story. It's okay. It's okay. That is pretty good. That is a pretty good story.
All right, so set this up.
What he's talking about is go ahead.
So it's before I was born. I can't set it up. You're coaching at Bethel in the 70s. That's what we got.
Right. Yep. Yeah, it was my first year, and we had two twin brothers on the team. One was really good, and one played football. Wasn't particular about wrestling. One was named Tony, and one was named Anthony. Really. And so my Tony got bit by a spider. How? Where? I have no idea, but it infected his whole arm. And we had a big match with Cap High School, who was a rival. And the year we won the state championship in '77, they won it in '77 as well. So they were a formidable team and a good competitor.
And Pocosin won it in single A. Tab, Pocosin, and Bethel all won it the same year in '77.
Yep, same year, basically same street.
Two of those schools are on the same street. Tab and Bethel are both on Big Bethel Road. If you make a lap from one school to the next, it is a 9-mile round trip.
Yep, not bad. And so we went to wrestle Tab, and he wasn't in the lineup, and we grabbed the brother and said, the twin brother, I said, listen, guys, we're only going to call everybody by their last name. And Tony and Anthony said, and Anthony, you're going to wrestle. He knew a bear hug, kind of, and big, muscled up, both of them twin. They looked like Godzilla, both of them did. They were identical twins. So I hope the fear of God was going to help us a little bit. So we weighed them in, and they both were Anthony and Antony, amen. So he said amen on the scale, and he got on the scale, and Tony was ranked number 1 in the region at the time. And the Tab coach said, boy, what a stud he is. I said, yeah, he is, which is the truth. You're playing football. And so we go out and wrestle, and here it goes. And I was afraid it was going to be a close match, and we're doing really well, and we're kicking their butts. And then it came time for 165, and I said, okay, let's go, man. So our guy, he ran. They had the rank wrestler. Tab had a rank wrestler, and Anthony and Tony ran at the kid and bear hugged him. and they both fell to the mat kind of at the same time, and there was a big scream came out. Nobody knew what happened, and then Willard Hunt runs out on the mat and takes a white towel and throws the towel in. And he goes, that guy's an animal. He's going to kill my guy. And I went, well, that's probably a good idea, Willard. So they forfeited to him. And so years went by before we let him know that it wasn't Tony, it was his twin brother that wrestled in the match.
So in case
that's that's like wrestling folklore from the Peninsula District in 1977.
It's not just folklore, because here's the thing: there's truth to it. Because years later, it might have been as recent as a couple years ago, I see Tony Mann, who's out there ref, and I says, "Hey Tony, any truth to the story about you being sick and your brother wrestling in your place?" He goes, "Oh, that was 100% true." I'm like, "Oh wow!" So it's like one of those things that you can't really do these days.
Yeah.
But
you got to have fun. You got to have fun with it.
All right, so just to wrap things up here, Virginia Challenge Holiday Duels coming to the Virginia Beach Convention Center, or as we used to call it, the Pavilion, down there at the Virginia Beach Oceanfront, December 7th, 8th, and 9th. Info at virginiachallenge.org. And you can watch it on Flow Wrestling. Also, keep an eye on youth1.com. Ryan Lance and the crew have done a really good job at promoting this. And if you go to Youth One right now,
Ryan Lance is the man. Youth One Wrestling. I cannot say enough good things about Youth One Wrestling. Youth One. They really cover the sport for youth athletes. And the guys, you want to know who the guys are going to be, the guys in the college level, at all levels. Youth One Wrestling absolutely does that. And Jason Bryant keeps you in the know. If you're not a member of Jason's newsletter that comes out at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm addicted to it. I don't leave my car. I go to school early to sit in the parking lot to read it, and I love it. And he's going to be covering the holiday duels this week on the Mat Talk.
Yeah, we'll have all those links that we can throw in there. I know that there are Youth One tournament links coming out of previewing certain teams. We had the massive preview linked in at mattalkonline.com/news today. But Frank, I think that's all we got. Your phone's been blowing up, so we'll let you get to answering these calls, because if for some reason, if people put your phone number on the website, they're going to call you. That's the way it works.
No, Jack set me up for that.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, what? I can't. We can't just end it right there. We got to talk a little bit about our board and staff, the Virginia Challenge. It's evolved over the years. You're the executive director. Tommy McMillan's been the president for a number of years. Jack Harcourt, who maintains a good relationship with the VAWA chapter. Of course, John and Tab, the Boswick, have been involved for a long, long time. And then, there's people that have come in the organization since I've left the state of Virginia.
Lucy Stowe just got selected to be inducted in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. That's 5 of our board members that are in the Virginia chapter to the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah,
Mike Cason, great referee. He's our head ref, amazing. He's like Mr. Calm, and particularly dealing with some unique characters that are in wrestling, but he's great with it. And we have Larry Burkhead. He's new to it, and Jack's daughter, Kaylin. She does a great job with our social media. We've come a long way. I don't have any jobs left because everybody else knows exactly how to do it right, and I just run on emotion.
It'd be like, what's Frank doing? Is there anything Frank's still doing we can fire somebody to do instead of? Oh, because of the old message boards, Frank. I was like, Frank, you got to spell check this, man. But
right.
we go through it. But man,
I learned of a new invention. It's called glasses, and I have some now, and it has changed things.
I also do want to give Lucy and Randall Stowe a bit of a plug there, because Lucy and a lot of the initial members, the people that were part of this group, they initially met through the old forum on Mat Talk Online when it was a Virginia site, and to this day, Lucy Stowe still has her email address as Mat Talk Lady, which is Lady was her handle on the message boards, meaning, yes, I'm Lady from Mat Talk. So she still uses it to this day. And while it may be a coincidence my daughter is named Lucy, it's pretty cool that there is a tie there to wrestling somehow. So congrats to the Stows on their upcoming induction as a duo into the Virginia chapter of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. It'll be cool to see when I hopefully get out there in April.
I'm at the pavilion, and the mats are going down. and you can almost smell the whistles. And soon, a war will happen on 40 mats, 124 teams, from wrestlers from every part of our nation, every part. Period.
Well, I'll let you get back to dealing with angry coaches and parents. Well, they won't be angry once the competition starts, except that their opponents. But Virginia Challenge again, Holiday Duels. VAC Duels, as the folks in Jersey have labeled it, live on Flow Wrestling, info at virginiachallenge.org. Frank, always a pleasure to talk to you, and good luck this weekend, man.
Thank you very much, and please, if you're hearing this, take a moment and go to our website, as Jason said, go to Flow Wrestling, and God bless everybody. And Jason, we're so daggone proud of you, and just keep doing what you're doing, period.
The Short Time Wrestling Podcast is proudly outfitted by Compound Clothing. Shirts, singlets, custom gear orders, everything you need. Call up Cliff and the crew at cmpteamwear.com. First time listening? Well, you can change that by going to mattalkonline.com/getshorttime to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or listen on your favorite podcatcher at mattalkonline.com/listen.
This show is part of the Matt Talk Podcast Network. For more wrestling podcasts, head over to mattalkonline.com.